Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
Hi, good everyone. How you going? Phil Tarrant here. Thanks for joining us on the Smart Property Investment Show. It's a real highlight for me to be able to record this podcast, and I get a real kick out of just how wide and far it goes. Now, it's funny how people will stop me every now and then and say, oh, wow, listening to your podcast is really cool. It's helping me make more informed buying and investing decisions, and that's why we do this. That's why we've been doing it for quite some time now. Probably got some reason to do with the popularity of it all, but helping investors not to make mistakes that I see a lot of people make and potentially avoid some of the mistakes we make. Hence the reason why we sort of talk about our portfolio quite a lot on the Smart Property Investment Show. But Investor Stories is where we like to be. We try and get good balance of at least 50% of our guests being investors sharing their story. Today is going to be one of them. Initiated with me is Lachlan Vidler. Did I get that right, Lachlan?
Yeah, you got that, Phil.
Vidler.
Yes.
What sort of nicknames you roll with?
Vids, that was a pretty common one. Yeah, okay. That was probably the main one, yeah.
Where are you recording from, mate?
I'm in Canberra at the moment.
Okay.
So, yeah, the rain's just come in. It was a nice blue sky after a few days of rain, and it's just turned again, and storm's coming in.
So you're looking pretty sharp there, mate, with a much better job. At least you've got a jacket on, I don't. But what do you do for a living?
So I used to be in the Navy. I was an officer in the Navy for a few years, and I've recently left, and now I double hat. So I'm a management consultant for Accenture Australia.
Okay.
And then I also run my own property business, Atlas Property Group.
Okay, that's cool. We'll have a chat about the property stuff in a moment. So how long are you in the Navy for?
6 years.
Okay.
6
What
years.
sort of work were you doing?
I originally started as a maritime warfare officer. So that was like a ship driver, doing pretty cool stuff there. And then as I sort of got towards the stage where I was looking at leaving, I wanted a bit of a change, something to set me up better for the outside. And I changed and became a maritime logistics officer.
Okay, cool. What ships did you serve on?
I was on Success, Chul's, Darwin, and Bathurst.
Okay. You did your rounds?
Yeah, it was good. It was good fun. Lots of different stuff. So.
I bet you. What do you think of the modern Navy? Air warfare destroyers. There's the attack class submarines coming on. There's the future frigate, the Hunter class frigate. I think we're building 9 of them. There's 12 subs and the new offshore patrol vessels. It's going to be a very different Navy than probably what it was when you kicked off your career in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's pretty exciting, to be honest. You know, we haven't, with the air warfare destroyers, I mean, the last major sort of like offensive capability that we took on was the Anzacs, and that was quite a few years ago. So bringing the air warfare destroyers on, I think it's pretty cool. And like you said, the submarines, and then we've got the future frigates as well. And it's a pretty exciting time, I think. Most of the expenditure at the moment is just in Navy. Navy's taking everyone's money.
Yeah, I've spoken to the chief of the Navy and, just gearing up the Navy for the future. And for those of our audience aren't really familiar with it, the Australian government's dedicated $270 billion, that's with a B, dollars, into defence acquisition over the next 10 years. And most of it, to Lachlan's point, is in naval shipbuilding. So there's a whole bunch of work going on right now around naval shipbuilding, gearing up everything to make sure that we can build these ships. And a lot of that is happening out of Adelaide, where essentially the home of naval shipbuilding. So that is a lot happening with property prices as a result of that. But anyway, let's not go too far in defence. Were you always going to sort of get out of defence in the Navy into some other job? Was that always the game plan?
I think when I look back, when I joined, I sort of always knew that I probably wasn't going to stick around and become an admiral. It was always join, learn a lot of things, do my service, that sort of thing, and then sort of probably transition into business and the corporate sector. I didn't really know when that was going to come, but I guess as I started to get towards the end of my time, I just sort of got to the point where I thought I need a new challenge. I need something new. I think I'm getting to that point now where I need to move on to something new and something different.
Yeah. I know quite a lot of people in the Navy, and most of them, when they joined in their sort of 20s, early 20s, spent most of their money drinking and gallivanting around rather than saving it and planning for the future. And that's probably a story you've heard many, many times. What was your sort of, while you're in the Navy, and if you were deployed, you get some pretty good perks as well, and you get cheaper interest rates and all this sort of stuff. But what was your philosophy towards making money and spending money? Did you use your Navy service as somewhere to propel out of it, ready to buy a property?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So when I was 18 and I had too much money from my first job being in the Navy, I went and bought a sports car. And then 12 months later, I realized what an awful decision it was, and I sold it. And then, I still enjoyed myself. But then as I sort of got a little bit older and a little bit further down the track, I then did start to save and bought my first property and became a little bit wiser with my money.
Yeah, and you don't need to be in the Navy. I'm sure it's a story that most 20-year-olds will resonate with, myself included. That hasn't really stopped me too much. So you left the Navy how long ago, Lachlan?
It was actually the start of this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Sorry, it was it was sort of end of last year, start of this year. So I think my last day in uniform was around November, middle of November, end of November last year.
You stick around and stay in the reserves, or you just wholesale?
No, I didn't. I decided to just move on and sort of, I guess I took the point of view that I didn't really want a safety net. I've had, friends that have left, and it's sort of always been like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and I haven't really committed to the move. And then they've come back to the Navy, and I thought when I was going through the process, no, I'd better just cut it clean, move on, and be able to throw myself fully into, my next career.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm sure if you ever wanted to get back into the Navy, they'd love to have you there, sort of crying out for people now. They've got all these new things coming on that need manning, and, shout out to the men and women of the Navy that do a great job. So Accenture, how long between leaving the Navy and picking up that new job was there?
Well, I actually didn't go straight to Accenture. I had a little pit stop along the way, and I joined a company called Deloitte.
Okay.
So when I looked at leaving, looking at people that, friends, colleagues, mentors that had left before me. And the best piece of advice that I had was make sure you know what you're going into when you decide to leave. So I made that conscious decision that I'd have a job, I'd have a signed contract before I left. And that just happened to be with Deloitte. So I joined them as a management consultant and doing a lot of consulting work to government. So it was sort of a very nice stepping stone from leaving defence and sort of public sector, public service, and then moving into consulting to them. So it was quite a nice soft landing, I guess you could say.
And did you tell the Navy that you were leaving and looking for a job, or you got the job and then it just went, time to hand it in?
Oh, how did it go? I think when I was looking or starting to consider it, I'd sort of put the feelers out, spoke to a few recruiters, spoke to ex-colleagues, things like that. And then my boss at the time, I sort of said to her, oh, look, you've sort of gathered I'm looking for a change. I do have some interviews and stuff coming up, things like that. And to her credit, she was best support ever. She said, look, if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. Just keep getting your work done and I'll support you how I can. And then once I, walked into her office one day and said, hey, sorry, but my time's come. Here's my discharge paperwork. She supported me and wished me nothing but the best.
That's cool. So you started at Deloitte and then moved quickly into Accenture.
Yeah, it was a bit of COVID and sort of combination of COVID and my transition out. And I got offered an amazing opportunity with Accenture. They were really building out their maritime practice and my skill set fit in really well with them. So it was sort of, it was a bit unfortunate because I really loved my time with Deloitte. Met some great people, got some great mates still that I chat to daily. But, I'm a big believer in opportunities and at the very least hearing them out. And when I got, having this opportunity put in front of me, I thought, no, I can't pass it up, even though some people might look and say, oh, it's a pretty short, quick jump. It was good and it was right for my career at the time.
It's just COVID, right? It's just COVID changes everything. But so we should probably start talking about property. We'll just go to a break beforehand. Back in a moment.
Whether you're an avid property investor or about to buy your first property, why do it alone when you could partner with Australia's best buyer's agent? Director of Pure Property Investment, Property Investment Professionals of Australia board member and REB Buyer's Agent of the Year, Paul Glossop, can take your portfolio to the next level. Get in touch today to discuss your investment goals. Get one-on-one insight from Paul Glossop. And for the first 100 people, this service is completely free. Head to purepropertyinvestment.com today to schedule your consult with Paul Glossop directly.
Welcome back, everyone. Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show with Lachlan Vidler. Just got a quick 101 on his backstory. And where during this journey from Navy to life after Navy did you start investing in property?
I started investing when I was in the Navy. So as we sort of spoke about earlier, I made some questionable financial decisions earlier on in my career and with the big paychecks for an 18-year-old. But as I started to move along and I got a business degree and a finance master's degree, I became
Did the Navy pay for that for you?
They paid for my business undergraduate degree, but I paid for my finance master's.
Okay, all right, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. All right.
No. And I guess, life experience, a bit of education, some learning, all of it sort of started pushing me down a pathway of knowing I needed to do better for myself. So I, saved up and started to learn about property specifically. The finance masters, it was very targeted towards shares, but it was really good at like valuation and things like that in general. So I still use that today in property, but I quickly realized that I love the idea of property utilizing leverage or other people's money and how much it can just supercharge compared to something like shares. So yeah, I decided to invest in property, and I got my first one at 22, I think.
Okay. It's young. What did you buy? Where?
I bought in Brisbane. So I know that a lot of people have sort of bought in Brisbane, but I got a really good deal. It's done really well for me over the last few years. I got it cheap. People love to throw around under market value, but I'm a big believer in what you pay is the market value. But comparatively, it was a really good deal. Great rental return, just a solid building, solid first property to get into. And I think annually it's grown about 6 to 7% compound.
Can't complain. And how much was it? Was it a house, 3 bedrooms? Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was a house. It was a 3-bed, 1 bath, 1 car spot. Got some good reno potential as well. So I could put a second bathroom in, and I could just refashion some of the inside and do the kitchen up a little bit. And when I sort of get around to it, it'll be a really great way to get some extra return. But it was quite cheap. It was 280 to 300, I think. It was somewhere. It was in that ballpark.
Which suburb?
Red Bank Plains.
Okay.
Yeah. So just a little bit west of Brisbane. I was a bit worried about the flood zones around there when I went to buy, but fortunately mine was well clear of all that. So that was probably the biggest hurdle to check in on.
So how'd you front the cash to get in?
Just
savings?
Saved. Yep. So just a deposit, and my partner and I, we built our portfolio together. So being able to borrow 2 people's income, it made it really easy, quite a smooth process. What a lot of people don't know is the way Defence Force wages and like your pay slips, they get a little bit interesting from the bank's perspective. So I had to get a really good broker on side to be able to explain away some of the things on it, and getting things like rental assistance. Banks just don't deal with that very well. So it can be difficult trying to manage that.
It's hard to explain it, and you need, again, a good broker can help you out with that sort of stuff. Was your partner also in uniform?
Yeah. So she was in the Air Force, and she's also recently left. So we met while we were in uniform, and now we've both transitioned out. So it's been quite a life journey.
And who did you get your initial loan through? Did you use the Defence Bank or anything like that?
No, I actually ended up going with Commonwealth Bank.
Okay.
We looked at Defence Bank, but their rates weren't that much better. The servicing actually wasn't that much better either. And Commonwealth Bank at the time just had better turnaround times. So we're not going with them. And I'm sure a lot of listeners will know about trying to get your loans in the right order, and having some of your initial loans through like a tier 1 lender is usually a lot better for down the track. So all of it sort of combined, and it was just ended up being the best decision for us.
Okay, that's cool. And how far between sort of property number 1 and property number 2 was it?
Not long. So not long at all. I think less than 12 months. Less than 12 months.
And where was property 2?
So that's down in Albury.
Okay.
So my partner, she's from down in the Albury, Wodonga region. So the area was having some good growth. And again, buying smart, looking for properties that were sort of undervalued compared to peers in the area. And then we got our next 2 down there.
So Albury's an interesting, or Albury Wodonga, which straddles the border, is an interesting regional town. But you see this in most sort of larger regional centres where you've got every type of property, right? There's a lower socioeconomic area, there's a upper socioeconomic area. So what did you buy and where? Any particular area of Albury, and what did you pay? Yeah,
so one is a unit, like a townhouse unit sort of one, and another one's a house. The unit was a pretty good buy, actually. I'm not a big fan of units, but when the opportunity came up, the deal specifics ended up working out quite well. And it was another relatively cheap one. It was probably 220-ish, I think.
Okay.
And then it rented out immediately for about 250. So It was a pretty good return. Nice, easy one. It's been very low maintenance, very low drag. They're both in the middle to upper socioeconomic area. And then the house was a 3-bed, 2-bath, and then it's on a nice plot of land. So it was another pretty good buy as well. And that's for about $330, I think, off the top of my head, $330, and that was immediately rented out for about $350. So
and you've always had them tenanted, no issues, no problems. And lenders for those 2 Albury properties, who'd you go with?
So my partner, being from that area, and she had some contacts, we actually used Hume Bank for that.
Okay, yeah.
So
that's what do you call them? A mutual, I guess.
Yeah,
community bank.
Yeah. So again, it was just good timing. She knew some people in the bank from growing up in the area, and we were able to get a very low interest rate on that. And more importantly, they turned it around quite quickly. So
that's handy.
Yeah.
You don't think, you put a lot of your chickens in one basket in Albury. Would you do the same again? Are you happy with that decision?
Probably wouldn't change it. It's worked out well. I think, being a younger guy, I've got some time, or my partner and I being two younger people, we've got time on our side. So we can afford to be a little bit more risky. I mean, at the end of the day, we bought in a major regional centre. There's 120,000 people. It's not Broken Hill or something
town.
like that. Yeah. But I think for us, it was more just that they were really good deals. And, you can look at things like the fact it's not Sydney or a major metropolitan city, but like we just said, they're big regional centres. There's lots of people there. The rents, they're not extremely high compared to median income. So it's always quite easy to have them tenanted, and there's always had low vacancy rates in the suburbs. So could we have spread it around more? We probably could have, but we got, what is it? The deal of the century comes around every day. And, we had 2 deals of the century that came around. So we just jumped.
I guess it's just part of the formative portfolio building. So there is a future, no doubt, for you in property. We'll get into that. We'll just go to a break beforehand. Back in a moment.
Are low interest rates impacting on your investment returns? It's time to rethink. Rethink Investing creates wealth for clients through the strategic purchase of positively geared, high cash flow commercial property. Industrial properties, retail assets, or office spaces can be a smart investment option that produces significant and long-term return on investment. Rethink your investment options and look to commercial property. Learn more at rethinkinvesting.com.au. Rethink Investing, Australia's #1 commercial buyers agency.
Welcome back, everyone. Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show, with Lachlan Vidler chatting through his journey. You said you're quite young. How many years you do in the Navy, Lachlan?
I did 6.
6 years. So how old are you now?
I'm 25.
Well, you're only 25.
Yeah.
You've already got one whole career behind you. What was your favourite part of your job in the Navy? Any memorable moments?
Yeah, the travel. I think it's,
you
jump. Yeah, you jump on a ship. You could be with 20 people on a patrol boat. It was with 20 people. You jump on a big ship, one of the frigates or one of the supply ships I was on, and you're with 200 people, and you travel the world. You have some tough times when you're out in the middle of the ocean and your family's not with you, your friends aren't with you, but then you get to see some amazing places and just see some amazing cultures while doing a job. I think it's an incredible opportunity.
It's you make me feel old, like 25, and you've already done that and had that experience, and propelled yourself into this next career as a management consultant. Where some people might think that's a dirty word, but no doubt there's lots of opportunities in Canberra if you work in the maritime space right now. But so 25 and you've got 3 properties, that's pretty good going. I thought most 25-year-olds, couldn't scratch together a couple of cents to buy themselves a avocado on toast or whatever. Like, what have you done so differently compared to everyone else who's complaining about housing affordability and it's impossible to buy property in Australia?
Well, it's pretty simple. I don't like avocado. I can't stand it. So, no, I think, although I'm quite young and I've done some financially irresponsible things when I was a little bit younger, I think that, at its core, I make sure I pay myself first. Every paycheck I get, I save. I go out and enjoy myself with friends and family, and I'll be down the pub on a weekend and I'll eat out meals and things like that. But everything is in moderation. And myself, and my partner, we've always had a goal. So each year it might be we've got to save X amount, or we've got to pull out X amount of equity, whatever it might be. And we stick as best we can to that goal. And I think when you've got something to target and move towards, it makes the slow process of reaching it that little bit better.
Who's driving the culture of the financial relationship you have with your partner? I don't want to get into any of the other stuff, but who's responsible for setting this tempo and pace for trying to drive towards an outcome or an objective?
I like to think that we're both very much mutually responsible. My background with a business degree and a finance master's, I've got a very analytical and financial mindset, whereas my partner, she is able to look at things a bit differently. She's a bit more creative. She can look at situations from, potentially a less analytical point of view. And I think that it just means that we gel very well. And I think past that as well, we just listen to each other. There's been times where she said, hey, I don't think we should do this. It's, maybe it'll stretch us too much, or maybe it's too risky. Let's wait. Like you said, we've got time. We're young. We can do other things. If we miss out on something this year, we can still do it next year. And we're not, pushing down the door of retirement. But I think that teamwork, it's always been teamwork. It's always been something that we do together. And we always make sure that, we communicate and each other feels comfortable with what we're doing.
Oh, it sounds like a really good partnership with, different set of skill sets, but common goals and values. And that's always really important. So what's next for you guys? Are you going to be property bazillionaires, or what's the game plan? What's the strategy?
Well, I think for us, it's probably twofold. We really want to keep building our property portfolio. So we've now, we've got a few properties that we've chatted about, and we've moved into the development space. So we've had quite a bit of equity through savings and the properties that we haven't been able to deploy into another purchase that we've been looking for. It's sort of just been a combination of finding the right deal and finding at the right price point. So we've been doing a little bit of syndicate property development, and that's been really good for sort of supercharging the returns that we can get. And then on the second pathway, we've recently opened up our own property business, a buyer's agency, Atlas Property Group, and we're going to try and grow that as much as we can and sort of help other people move down a path like we have.
And sort of the outcomes, you're talking about development, where you're developing, what are you developing? What's the strategy with that? You're going to sell them, are you going to keep them, or what are you doing?
So it's down in Melbourne. Fortunately for us, coronavirus hasn't impacted it too much because we weren't up to the building component of the development, and we were still going through a lot of the approvals. Thankfully, because of that, the project timeline hasn't really been too delayed. We're down in a suburb called Camberwell, and we're in a small group syndicate, but it's a 3 townhouse sort of development, and it's due for completion next year,
Okay.
about middle to third quarter next year.
And the idea is you'll keep one, do you?
No, so we're going to sell. Sell, obviously, unless the market has had something, catastrophic happen to it, and the metrics aren't there to justify selling. The plan has always been, sell.
To sell it. So what do your numbers tell you? What's your sort of cost to realise the sale?
Yeah, so at the end of the development, we should be returning about a 13 to 15% annualized return for about an 18 to 24 month project. Okay. And I think off the top of my head, I haven't looked at the numbers in that long, but it's supposed to be, I think, somewhere around the $9 million gross realised value.
Okay. So how are you borrowing? How are you getting the cash together for all this sort of stuff? Are you borrowing as a group? You're borrowing under a company? How's all that work?
Yeah, so it's gone through it's called a special purpose vehicle, and then it's been a combination of lending, which I haven't been taking control of, and then equity put in from each of us.
Okay. And do you know the other people as part of the syndicate well?
A little bit. We know each other a little bit, not awfully well. We've all tried to keep a relative distance. I think that's actually been quite good because it's meant that people haven't tried to become too hands-on or maybe take on responsibilities or perceive responsibilities that they don't have or that they shouldn't be doing. And right now it works well.
Okay. Are you concerned? Like it's sounds like a bit of money's gone into this. Where do you think it could go wrong, and how are you mitigating?
I think that really the biggest impact will be from coronavirus and what may or may not flow from that. Fortunately, the suburb of Camberwell, it's a very high net worth sort of area. So the people that will be targeting to sell the investment, the properties to, hopefully, coronavirus hasn't impacted them too much. And relatively compared to the rest of the suburb, they're at a good price point. We're not at the top of the market. We're not at the bottom. So ideally, it should be quite streamlined. I guess it'll just come down to the economics of coronavirus. And
so you said 9 million sort of asset value is what it is. So 3 townhouses at $3 million each. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's, it's only a certain clientele who's going to be buying that stuff, but I know where Camberwell is and I could see how that would fit into that particular suburb. That's a big step up from a house in Albury.
Yeah. I guess it was sort of what I said earlier. It was opportunity. We've saved a lot. Our properties have done very well. We've got a few different income streams, so we're quite privileged to be in a position where we can afford to make, an investment into a development like that. And I think it's exciting. Like I said, we're young. If things go wrong, fingers crossed they don't, we can recover, and we're not worried about that from that perspective. Obviously, it'll hurt, the day and probably the day after, but we've got time on our side. And I think that when you're on the younger side and you can afford to take risks like that, as long as they're measured and, like you said, you can work out ways to mitigate the risk, I think it's in everyone's interest to at least check them out.
It's, no doubt you just by chatting to you for half an hour, you're wired a particular way. So no doubt you've looked at the numbers, but it's a good Hail Mary, right? Like if it works out at the age that you're in, it will completely transform how you decide to think about property moving forward. If you cash out with that sort of money, what would be the objective of where would you park those dollars once you get rid of the debt? You know, how much do you think you'll end up with in terms of personally, a cash profit?
In terms of a cash profit, I mean, we're hoping, upwards, in the six figures, well upwards in the six figures. And I think that from our perspective, if it goes the way it should and the way that it's planned to and things like that, you've raised a good point. What comes next? And I think, that's the sort of point where we'd really have to sit back and go, okay, did that go the way it did? Did we get lucky? If it all went the way it did and we'd analyze the deal the way that, I believe that we did, and it truly was, because of our efforts that we got to that point, would we look at another development? Maybe. I think that development really is a way that you can supercharge your returns, but it is so much more risky. But alternatively, depending on what's happening in the market, and I'm the first one to say I don't have a crystal ball for 2 months' time, let alone 12 months' time. Maybe the smarter decision is to sit for a little bit. You think it's Warren Buffett said something along the lines of, he's made all of his money from the deals he hasn't done rather than the ones that he has done. So maybe sitting for 6 months and taking a better look at the state of play of the market and the property sector as a whole could be a smarter choice.
Yeah, it's probably not a bad look at it. You still got time on your side. If you choose to work until you retire, you've got 3 or 4 sort of market cycles in you, right? It's you can get a lot done in that time. But that's really good, Lachlan. Well, you're going to have to let us know how you go with it. Be interesting to see how that all plays out with you, and we can sort of crunch the numbers if you're happy to do it post this, the realisation if this plan works out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think fingers crossed it'll work out well, and it'll be good to chat about it if it does come off.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm sure a lot of people are going, I wonder how that's going to play out. Let's see. But watch your space. We'll make sure we get Lachlan back. Lachlan, thanks for your time today, mate. I do enjoy it. Good.
Thanks, Phil.
All right, so remember to check out smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. If you're not yet subscribing to our daily morning newsletter, so the first to know what's happening in property and property investment right across the nation, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au/subscribe. Social media, Smart Property HQ. You'll find us there. We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Are you in the real estate industry? We're on the lookout for Australia's best agents, networks and property managers to enter the REV Awards 2021 with principal partner List Ready. The awards provide an invaluable opportunity to showcase your contribution to the industry, raise your profile on the national stage and celebrate your achievements with your peers. Nominations close in November. Start your nomination now at realestatebusinessawards.com.au/REV-awards.